The Italian leather armchair in Damon Castellano's executive suite cost more than most cars. Imani Banks ignored it as she collapsed into it, exhausted at 2 hours and 47 minutes past midnight. She had spent 16 straight hours scrubbing floors at 3 different job sites. Her knees ached. Her hands were raw from bleach. Her eyes burned with fatigue she could no longer fight. Just 5 minutes, she told herself as her eyelids grew heavy. Anyway, no one comes to the office at such a late hour. She was wrong. At 3 o'clock sharp, the private elevator of Damon Castellano opened with a soft chime. Imani didn't hear it. His 6'3" silhouette entered the darkness of his executive office, lit only by the Chicago skyline glowing through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows. He turned on the light, and there she was, a woman asleep in his chair behind his desk. Her cleaning cart abandoned beside her, bucket and mop scattered as if she had lost all hope. Damon clenched his jaw so hard it hurt. His head of security, a former Marine named Burton, appeared at his side. "Sir, I'll remove her immediately." "No." Damon's voice was as icy as an Alaskan winter. "Let her sleep." Burton blinked, perplexed. Everyone who worked for Damon Castellano knew his obsessive need for order, control, and cleanliness. The man wore gloves just to shake hands in business meetings. His office was deep cleaned twice a day. He had fired an executive for leaving a coffee stain on a conference table. And now he wanted to let a stranger, a cleaning woman, sleep in his personal space? "Sir?" Burton asked cautiously. Damon's dark eyes never left the sleeping Imani as he picked up the phone. "Give me the number for Morrison Cleaning Service, the owner's personal cell." "Yes, I know what time it is. I don't care." 5 minutes later, he hung up and continued watching over sleeping Imani, his mind already calculating. Then he made another call. "Burton, bring me a stick." "A stick, sir? A ruler, something pointed and sharp, something long?" Burton knew better than to argue. "Yes, sir." 2 minutes later, Burton returned with a long wooden ruler. Damon gripped it, his face frozen in cold fury. "Everyone out," he ordered in a low, menacing voice. "Now." The security team exchanged puzzled glances and filed into the elevator without another word. The doors closed with a soft click, leaving Damon alone with the intruder who had dared profane his sanctuary. He slowly pulled on a pair of black leather gloves, the ones he wore when contamination was unavoidable. His movements were precise, controlled, terrifying. He approached the chair, the ruler held like a weapon. Imani remained asleep, completely unaware that the most powerful man in Chicago stood over her, ready to wake her in a way she would never forget. What is Damon going to do with that stick? And how did a cleaning woman end up asleep in the office of a billionaire who controls everything and everyone? This story will take you on an unforgettable journey. Subscribe now and turn on notifications because the continuation is going to shock you. Now let's go back to the starting point of this nightmare. 3 days earlier, the smell of disinfectant stung Imani's nostrils as she sat beside her mother's bed, Mama Loretta. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the sterile room. Mama Loretta had been unconscious for days, her body too weak to fight the cancer devouring her from the inside. A doctor in blue scrubs entered quietly. "Miss Banks?" Imani stood. "Yes? How is she?" Dr. Smith looked kind but serious. "Her condition is deteriorating. The experimental treatment is working, but slowly. We must operate on the primary tumor without delay, or we risk losing the window we've created." "When? How soon?" "Next week." But Dr. Smith hesitated. "There is the matter of the outstanding balance. The hospital requires at least half the total cost up front before we can schedule the surgery." "Half?" Imani felt her heart shrink. "How much is half?" At least $1,400. $1,400. Imani felt the room spin. She earned $12 an hour at the diner, $15 at the cleaning company. Even working 80 hours a week, she was lucky to clear $2,000 a month after rent and bills. "I don't have that money," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "I understand. But without the surgery, I'm sorry, Miss Banks. We need to see progress on the payment plan before the end of the week." Dr. Smith left, and Imani sank into the chair, the weight of $1,400 crushing her chest. 20 minutes later, Keisha, her best friend, found her in the empty hospital chapel, except for Imani and an elderly woman praying in Spanish in the front row. "There you are," Keisha exclaimed, sitting beside her and balancing 2 cups of barely drinkable hospital coffee. "Nurse Deborah said you looked ready to pass out. What happened?" "Dollars. What?" "It's what I need. Half of Mama's surgery costs paid by the end of the week." Imani took the coffee gratefully, letting its warmth heat her icy hands. "I make about $2,000 a month." "Do the math." Keisha let out a low whistle. "Jesus, I don't think you have the means right now." Despite everything, Keisha managed to smile. "Poor thing. Just don't let Sister Paulette hear you talk like that. She'll have the whole church praying for blasphemy." Imani almost laughed, but a sob escaped instead. Keisha immediately pulled her into her arms, and Imani let herself go. Ugly crying, where your breath hitches, your nose runs, and you wail like a wounded animal. "I can't lose her. Keisha," Imani sobbed. "She's all I have left. If Mama dies—" "Your Mama isn't going to die," Keisha said firmly. "Loretta Banks is the strongest woman I know." She survived a rough childhood in the roughest parts of the city. She survived raising you alone after your daddy left. She survived working 2 jobs for 20 years. She'll survive this too, but not if I can't pay for her surgery. "Then we'll find a way." Keisha pulled back and looked Imani straight in the eyes. "How many jobs do you have right now?" 3. Mornings at the diner, afternoons cleaning downtown offices, night cleaning shift at the airport. "It's not enough. I need more." Imani let out a bitter laugh. "Again, Keisha, I already sleep 4 hours a day. When am I supposed to find another job?" "I don't know, but you're going to have to figure it out." Keisha wasn't cruel. She was honest, and that was what Imani needed. "Look, my cousin Chanis works for a cleaning company that handles all the buildings in the loop, Morrison Service or something. They pay better than what you're making now, and they're always hiring because the work is brutal and most people quit. It's way better. $25 an hour plus overtime, and I swear there's always overtime. Those rich folks want their offices cleaned at impossible hours. That's why we end up doing double shifts all the time." Imani was already calculating. $25 an hour with overtime premium. If she could get 40 hours a week there and keep the diner job. "Can you text me Chanis's number?" "Doing it now." Keisha pulled out her phone. "But Imani, I'm serious. You also have to take care of yourself. Promise me you'll eat at least 1 real meal a day and take your vitamins." "Deal." They shook on it like they were 10 years old again, pinky swearing to share candy and keep secrets. Back when Imani's biggest problem was whether she'd get new shoes before school started. Now, she faced a $140,000 debt and the possible death sentence of her mother. "Whatever it takes," Imani repeated as she went up to see her mom before her diner shift. "Whatever it takes." 3 weeks later, Imani started working for Morrison Cleaning Service. The training took place in a grim office building that smelled of dampness and despair. Imani sat on a folding chair between a woman who coughed nonstop without covering her mouth and a 16-year-old boy who was probably lying about his age to get the job. At the front of the room, a burly man in his 50s, arms glistening with sweat, pointed at a PowerPoint presentation that looked like it dated from 1997. Morrison Service provides high-end cleaning to Chicago's elite corporate clientele, he droned. Our clients demand excellence, demand discretion, demand invisibility. The coughing woman raised her hand. What does invisibility mean? It means you do your job without being seen. You clean after hours. You don't touch personal items. You don't snoop. You don't steal. To them, you only exist to deliver spotless offices when they arrive in the morning. Understood? Everyone nodded. Good. Now, let's talk about our most important client. Mr. Morrison advanced to the next slide, and a massive skyscraper appeared on screen. The Castellano Building. 68 floors of offices, luxury condos, and retail. We handle maintenance for the entire building, but floors 60 through 68 are special. Why? Someone asked. Because that's where he works. Mr. Morrison's voice took on an almost reverent tone. Damon Castellano, CEO of Castellano Enterprises, one of the richest men in America. He owns this building and 50 others across the country. Imani leaned forward, studying the building on the screen. She had seen it before. Everyone in Chicago had. Impossible to miss. A gleaming tower of steel and glass dominating the skyline like a dare to poverty. Mr. Castellano is demanding, Mr. Morrison continued carefully. He has very precise requirements for the upkeep of his private floors. Everything must be perfect, and I mean perfect. Skip a step, you're fired. Move something on his desk, you're fired. Arrive late, you're fired. One wrong breath and dismissal is guaranteed. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Mr. Morrison didn't laugh. I'm not joking. Last year I lost 14 employees to Mr. Castellano's demands. He calls me personally to point out violations, so if you're assigned to the Castellano floors, prepare to work like you've never worked before. Questions? Imani raised her hand. How much does the Castellano assignment pay? Mr. Morrison smiled for the first time. $30 an hour, plus overtime and an end-of-contract bonus if you last 6 months without being fired. A dead silence fell. $30 an hour was life-changing money for people like them. How do you get that assignment? Imani asked. You won't get it. You survive long enough for me to trust you, and then maybe, I put you in the Castellano rotation. Mr. Morrison's smile faded. But let's be clear. This job will devour you alive. Damon Castellano is a perfectionist with obsessive-compulsive disorder and a need for control that would make a general seem relaxed. He will make your life hell. He will find the tiniest flaw. He will. I'll take it, Imani interrupted. All eyes turned to her. Mr. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? I accept the Castellano assignment. As soon as you're ready to trust me, I'll take it. Imani's voice was steady, confident. Her heart pounded, but she couldn't let it show. I need the money. I'll work harder than anyone. I won't complain. I won't quit. Mr. Morrison studied her for a long moment. You have family problems, medical bills, debts. Everyone who volunteers for Castellano duty has a desperate reason, Mr. Morrison said quietly. It's the only reason we accept putting up with it. Very well, Miss Banks. You start regular shifts tomorrow. Night crew, floors 10 to 20. Good work. Don't cause me problems. Be on time every day for 2 weeks. Then we'll talk about Castellano. Thank you, sir. After the briefing, Imani stepped into the October chill of Chicago, filled with a feeling she hadn't felt in months. Hope. $30 an hour. If she could land that Castellano job and keep her diner hours, If she could rack up enough overtime, if she could endure a few months, she could save her mother. Whatever it takes, she thought again as she headed to the bus stop. Whatever it takes. Imani lasted exactly 13 days before Mr. Morrison summoned her to his office. "You're good," he said without preamble. "Fast, efficient. None of the building managers have complained. Chanis was right about you." Imani stood in front of his desk, still in her cleaning uniform that smelled of industrial products and exhaustion. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet." Mr. Morrison leaned back in his creaking chair. "I'm short-staffed on the Castellano floors. 3 people quit last week. One of them actually cried when she resigned. Said she'd rather be unemployed than endure his madness one more day." "I won't quit," Imani said. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." Imani met his eyes directly. "My mother has stage 4 cancer. Her surgery costs more than I'll earn in 3 years. I need this job, Mr. Morrison. I won't quit. I won't make mistakes. I'll do whatever it takes." Mr. Morrison sighed heavily. "You're going to regret those words." "Fine. Starting tonight, you're on Castellano duty, floors 60 to 68. You work midnight to 8 a.m. Floors must be flawless before the first employees arrive at 7:30. And your diner job is your problem. Castellano is nights. If you want to make money, figure it out." Imani did quick mental math. Her diner shift ended at 11 p.m. If she took the express bus, she could reach the Castellano building before midnight. Work until 8, sleep until 2 in the afternoon, head back to the diner by 3. That was 4 hours of sleep. She had survived on less during finals weeks at community college before she had to drop out. "I can do it," she said. "Congratulations, Ms. Banks." Mr. Morrison slid a thick binder across his desk. "This is the Castellano manual. It contains every instruction for cleaning his floors. Read it, memorize it, live it. Your first shift is tonight at midnight. Don't be late." At 11:47 p.m., Imani stood in front of the Castellano building, head tilted back, trying to see the top. Up close, it was even more imposing. The glass panels reflected the city lights like a mirror, giving the whole structure a glowing, powerful aura. The lobby visible through the windows was all marble and modern art. Luxury Imani had only ever seen in movies. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and pushed through the revolving door. "Cleaning crew," she told the security guard at reception without looking up. "Yes, ma'am." "Imani Banks, first night on the Castellano floors." The guard looked up and a flash of sympathy crossed his face. He was a black man, maybe in his 60s, gray hair, kind eyes. "First night. Lord have mercy. You know what you're getting into, young lady." "I read the manual." "Reading it and living it are 2 different things." The guard, whose badge read Walter, pulled out a tablet and checked Imani in. "Mr. Castellano is picky about everything. Absolutely everything. The last cleaning lady who worked for him got fired for rolling the vacuum cord the wrong direction." "You're joking." "Wish I was." Walter handed her a badge and keycard. "This gives you access to the elevators up to 60 and above. Service elevator is in the corner. You'll be working alone up there. Mr. Castellano doesn't like multiple people in his workspace." "Alone on 9 floors? "You have 8 hours. Better get started." By 8 a.m., Imani understood why 3 people had quit the week before. The Castellano floors were immaculate to begin with. It was like cleaning an already clean space in search of invisible dirt that might offend a man who apparently saw imperfections invisible to ordinary mortals. But it wasn't just the cleaning that exhausted her. It was the pressure. Every surface Imani touched felt significant. The conference table on that floor probably cost more than her childhood home. The modern art on the walls looked straight out of a museum. The carpet was so thick and perfect, she felt guilty walking on it in her cheap sneakers. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, were signs of Damon Castellano's obsessive control. Books ordered by height and color, coffee mugs in the break room facing outward at precise intervals. Even the pens on desks were aligned parallel to the edge. Imani held her breath while cleaning, terrified of disturbing the perfect order of that perfect world. When she reached the floor with Damon Castellano's personal suite, she was behind schedule and exhausted. The executive suite was movie-worthy. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, a desk the size of her kitchen in dark wood that probably cost more than her car. Authentic art on the walls, not prints, but real, textured, signed paintings. And that chair, that magnificent, butter-soft Italian leather armchair behind the imposing desk. Imani knew she shouldn't. The rules strictly forbade sitting on client furniture, but her feet hurt. Her back ached, and that chair looked so comfortable. Just 1 second, she told herself. Just long enough to rest my legs and catch my breath. She sank into the chair like it was a cloud. The leather was incomparably soft, the cushioning perfect, the height ideal. Imani closed her eyes. Just 1 minute, and then back to work. She woke to a tickling sensation on her arm. Not a finger, a ruler. Wake up. The voice was deep, cold, and terribly angry. Imani's eyes flew open, and there he was. Undoubtedly the most handsome man she had ever seen. The stranger towered over her. 6 feet, 3 inches of contained fury, dressed in a 3-piece suit that probably cost more than 3 months of her pay. His skin was deep brown, his hair cut short, his jaw so sharp it could cut glass. But it was his eyes that froze Imani's blood. Dark brown, almost black, and utterly ruthless. Imani tried to stand from the chair, but her exhausted body wouldn't cooperate. She stumbled, barely catching herself on the desk. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. You fell asleep in my chair. In my office. Each word was delivered with surgical precision, as if addressing an idiot. Do you realize how many hygiene violations you just committed? She was in shock. Wait, your office? This man was Damon Castellano. She had pictured him as a grumpy old man. Apparently, she had only been right about the first part. I'm sorry, Mr. Castellano, I just... Out! Please, I'm going. Damon's voice didn't rise, but the command in it made Imani jump. I'm calling Morrison right now. You're fired. Security will escort you out of the building. Panic seized Imani. No, 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 no! She couldn't be fired. Not now. Not when Mama's surgery was scheduled next week and she still didn't have enough for the payment. Please, Mr. Castellano. Imani's voice cracked. Please don't fire me. I need this job. My mother is sick. She has cancer, and I need money for her surgery. I'll work harder. I'll never rest again. Everyone has a sob story, Damon interrupted coldly. He circled his desk, carefully avoiding Imani, and picked up his phone. Yours doesn't interest me. Then Imani did something stupid, a desperate move. She lunged and grabbed his wrist before he could lift the receiver. Please, she begged. Please. The world exploded, not in pain or disgust, but in pure electric shock that raced up Imani's arm and through her entire body. It was like touching a live wire, but instead of hurting, it sent pleasant tingles. A hot, electrifying current that made her release him instantly. Damon jerked back as if burned. His body recoiled so hard his elbow hit the desk edge. The phone flew, It arced through the air in slow motion, spinning before smashing against the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. The screen shattered. Absolute silence reigned for a moment. Imani stared at the destroyed phone, still reeling from the strange, pleasant shock she had just felt. Damon stared at his bare wrist where she had touched him, his face twisted between shock and another emotion, almost wonder. "That phone," he said very softly, eyes still on his wrist, "cost $80,000. Imani's world collapsed. "What?" "Custom, encrypted, one of a kind. And you just destroyed it." Damon finally lifted his eyes to her, and there was something strange in his gaze, something calculating. "You will pay for every cent." "I don't have $80,000. "You will work it off." Damon's voice was cold, but his gaze kept returning to his wrist. "Starting tonight. How does it work?" Imani was still dazed from that odd, electric sensation. "I have a chef, 2 housekeepers, and 2 maintenance staff who handle everything in my home," Damon answered in a businesslike tone, though his gaze remained distant. "I'm granting them all extended leave. You will replace them." Imani's mouth fell open. One person couldn't do the work of 5. "Then you will work twice as hard." Damon pulled out another phone, apparently he had a spare, and began typing. "You will arrive at my home every morning at 6. You will cook, clean, shop, and handle everything in my residence until 6 p.m. 12 hours a day, 6 days a week." "No," Imani cut in, her pride finally resurfacing. "No, I will not be your maid. I'd rather go to jail." She turned and ran from the office without waiting to be escorted. She didn't look back. She ran, heart pounding, mind still reeling from that electric contact, from the insane proposal, and from the sheer arrogance of a man who thought he could buy her life. She ran to the service elevator and didn't stop until she was outside on the street, hailing a taxi to the hospital. Imani burst into the county hospital at 5 in the morning, chest heaving, mind in deep confusion. She ran to her mother Loretta's room and found a team of doctors and nurses around the bed. Her heart stopped. "What's happening? What's wrong?" Dr. Smith turned, face grave. "Miss Banks, your mother's condition has worsened. She suffered cardiac arrest. We resuscitated her, but she is critical. We need to perform emergency surgery immediately if she is to have any chance of survival." "Then do it!" she cried. "We can't," Dr. Smith said softly. "Beyond the payment, the hospital requires at least half the total cost up front before we can proceed with such a high-risk intervention. That comes to $140,000, Miss Banks. We need it immediately." He had barely finished speaking when 2 imposing men in dark suits appeared behind her. Burton, Damon's head of security, and another guard. "Miss Banks," Burton said in an icy voice, "Mr. Castellano requires you immediately." "No!" Imani shouted, pointing toward her mother's room. "I'm not going anywhere." "Your mother will die anyway if you don't come with us," the other guard said, gripping her arm. At that exact moment, Burton's phone rang. He answered. "Sir?" Imani could hear Damon's voice, faint but distinct on the other end. "Is the doctor there? Put him on speaker." Burton tapped the screen. Dr. Smith's voice filled the small space. "I'm sorry, without the funds, we can do nothing more." "Pay it," Damon's voice snapped, dry and commanding over the speaker. "The full amount, the entire balance. Transfer the funds immediately. I want her in surgery within the hour." Burton glanced at Imani, face impassive. "Sir, are you certain?" "I know what the total is. Do it. Burton hung up and made another call. Jenkins, transfer $300,000 to County Hospital. Patient Loretta Banks, full payment. Now Dr. Smith stared, mouth open. Who is? Someone who believes in repayment of debts. Damon's voice rang out again over the phone, this time directed at Imani. And collects what is owed. You rejected my offer, Miss Banks. The terms have changed. Your mother's medical expenses are paid in full. But now, you owe me $38,000. At $30 an hour, working for me 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, it will take you approximately 2 years to repay that sum. Imani felt the blood drain from her face. You can't. I already did. Damon's voice was cold, final. You start tomorrow morning at my home, 6 o'clock sharp. Don't be late. The call ended. Dr. Smith stared at Imani. I don't understand what's happening, but the funds just cleared. Your mother is being prepped for surgery. She has a chance. Imani looked through the operating room window where they were wheeling her mother. A chance. It was everything she had ever wanted, and the price paid. 2 years of her life. If you think Damon manipulated Imani like a puppet and she's truly trapped, comment, she's trapped. If you think Damon's obsession with making her work for him hides something deeper, comment, it's not just the phone. Either way, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. We'll see what happens when Imani moves into Damon's home. The address Damon had texted her was in Gold Coast, one of Chicago's most expensive neighborhoods. At 6 in the morning, Imani stood in front of the elegant glass building, gaze lifted toward the tower that overlooked Lake Michigan as if it owned it. She had taken 3 buses to get there, no money for an Uber, and now stood in the private lobby, keycard in hand. The elevator was private, straight to the penthouse. No stops. You can do this, Imani told herself. Just 2 years. 2 years cooking and cleaning for a control-freak billionaire. Then Mama will be healthy, you'll be free, and this will all be a bad memory. She swiped her keycard. The elevator doors opened. Imani stepped in. The doors closed behind her with a soft click, like a trap snapping shut. The penthouse was exactly as Imani had imagined, and worse. Everything was white, chrome, and glass. The furniture looked museum-grade. The art on the walls was authentic and undoubtedly worth more than Imani would earn in her lifetime. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Lake Michigan so beautiful it stole her breath. And the cleanliness was impeccable, almost obsessive. Not a speck of dust, not a single item out of place. Even the sofa cushions were arranged at precise angles as if measured with a protractor. You're 5 minutes early. Imani jumped and turned. Damon stood in a doorway she hadn't noticed. He wore workout clothes, designer pieces that emphasized his broad shoulders and musculature. A towel hung around his neck, water bottle in hand. He had just finished exercising. He looked good. Really good. So good, Imani's mouth went dry when she was supposed to hate him. I figured better early than late, Imani said, struggling to keep her voice steady. Mornings are unpredictable. Unpredictability disrupts my schedule. Damon's dark gaze swept over her, assessing. But I suppose it shows initiative. There's a schedule on the kitchen counter. Follow it to the letter. I'll be in my office. Don't disturb me unless the building is on fire. He disappeared through another door before Imani could respond. Alone in the vast living room, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. 2 years, she repeated. You can survive anything for 2 years. The schedule was typed, printed, and laminated, obviously a daily one. Household staff. 6 a.m., prepare breakfast. Egg white omelet with spinach and tomatoes, no cheese. 1 slice dry whole-grain toast, black coffee brewed in a French press, 4 minutes steep. Precise. Fresh squeezed orange juice, squeezed that morning, not from a carton. At 6:05, serve breakfast. Place cutlery in the dining room on the placemat oriented east, utensils exactly 2.5 centimeters from the plate edge. Coffee cup handle at 3 o'clock. 7 to 7:30, clean kitchen. Wash all dishes immediately. Wipe counters with antibacterial solution. Mop floor. The list went on for pages. Every minute of Imani's 12 hours was meticulously planned, scheduled, controlled, like everything else in Damon Castellano's life. Imani found the kitchen larger than her entire apartment and got to work. The omelet came out wrong. Not burn the kitchen down wrong, but certainly not the fluffy, perfect creation the schedule seemed to demand. The eggs were a little rubbery. The vegetables weren't evenly distributed, and when Imani tried to flip it, it crumbled into mush. "Damn it!" Imani groaned, staring at the disaster in the pan. She plated it as best she could, added the toast, coffee, and the orange juice she had hand-squeezed for 20 minutes because, of course, Damon didn't own an electric juicer. He had a fancy manual reamer that required real effort. At 7 sharp, Imani carried the tray to the dining room. Damon was already seated, absorbed in his tablet, dressed in an impeccable suit that doubtless cost more than Imani's car. He didn't look up when she entered. Imani set the plate on the placemat as instructed, placed the utensils 1 centimeter from the edge, turned the coffee cup so the handle pointed at 3. Damon glanced at the food. His expression remained impassive, but Imani noticed his jaw tighten slightly. "This omelet is badly made," he said quietly. "I know, I'm not a chef. I did my best." "And your best produced scrambled eggs when I requested an omelet." "Perhaps you should lower your standards," Imani shot back before she could stop herself. Damon's gaze met hers, and for an instant Imani thought she had made a terrible mistake. This man held her life in his hands for the next 2 years. He could make her existence hell if he wanted. But instead of anger, a flicker of something almost amused lit his dark eyes. "Lower my expectations," he repeated slowly, as if testing a new idea. "No one has ever suggested that to me." "Maybe someone should have." Damon picked up his fork and tasted the scrambled mess. He chewed slowly, thoughtfully, then swallowed. "It's adequate," he said finally. "Tomorrow, watch a video on making a perfect omelet. YouTube is full of tutorials. Pick one and learn." "Yes, sir," Imani replied, sarcastic. "Miss Banks." Damon's voice stopped her as she turned to leave. "I don't need you to call me sir. Damon will do." Imani turned back, surprised. "You want me to use your first name?" "We're going to work closely together for 2 years. Formalities seem unnecessary." He took a sip of coffee, and Imani caught a faint gleam of satisfaction on his face. "By the way, the coffee is perfect. No matter how you made it, do it exactly the same way tomorrow." It was probably the most genuine compliment Damon Castellano had ever given anyone. Imani didn't know whether to feel pleased or annoyed. She settled on confused. The rest of the morning was a whirlwind of endless tasks. Clean the kitchen, dry every surface, organize the pantry alphabetically, because of course everything had to be alphabetical. Vacuum the living room in straight lines, dust shelves without moving books. By noon, Imani's back ached and her hands smelled of cleaner. The schedule allowed a 30-minute lunch break. She collapsed onto a kitchen stool and pulled out the sandwich she had brought from home. She was halfway through when she felt eyes on her. Imani looked up. Damon stood in the kitchen doorway, staring at her sandwich as if it were an alien object. "Is that gas station ham?" he asked with fascination and horror. "Yes. It's cheap and it fills me up.
Problem? My refrigerator is stocked with organic, free-range, artisanal products, and you eat gas station ham.
Your fancy ingredients are for your meals, not mine. You employ me. You eat what's in my kitchen. Damon walked to the fridge and began pulling things out. There's smoked salmon, prosciutto, fresh mozzarella, arugula.
My sandwich is fine.
No, you eat processed meat that probably contains 50% sodium and 50% chemicals. Damon was already assembling something on a plate. Fresh bread, gourmet cheese, vegetables that probably cost more per pound than Imani earned per hour. He slid the plate across the counter. Eat this instead. Imani stared at the gorgeous gourmet sandwich, then at Damon, then back at the sandwich. Why do you care?
That you eat? Because if you get food poisoning, you can't work. And if you can't work, the entire household collapses.
Damon's voice was logical, pragmatic, completely devoid of emotion.
It's in my interest that you stay healthy.
But as he turned to leave, Imani caught something in his expression that contradicted his icy words. Something that looked almost like concern. No, impossible. Damon Castellano didn't care about people. He liked control, order, and getting what he wanted. And what he wanted was a healthy domestic who could make a decent omelet. That was all. Around 2 in the afternoon, Imani was cleaning Damon's bedroom, and that's when things took a strange turn. The room was exactly as she had imagined. A massive bed with impeccably tucked white sheets, nightstands with lamps and books perfectly aligned, a closet full of suits ordered by color. The space was spotless, and Imani felt like she was wasting time cleaning a room that didn't need it at all. She was pretending to dust an already shiny nightstand when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw Damon standing in the doorway, watching her with an intensity that gave her chills. "Need something?" she asked.
No, just checking your progress. I'm cleaning. Nothing complicated.
Still, Damon entered the room and approached.
Imani resumed dusting, acutely aware of his presence a few steps away, observing her.
She picked up the lamp on the nightstand and leaned to adjust it.
That's when Damon moved. He stepped forward quickly, hand outstretched as if to touch her shoulder. But at the last second he pulled back, fingers hovering inches from her blouse. Imani spun around.
"What are you doing?"
"Nothing. I thought you were about to knock over the lamp."
Damon's voice was soft, but Imani caught a flash in his eyes. Disappointment. Frustration.
"I wasn't going to knock it over." "Of course. My mistake."
Damon turned and left, leaving Imani standing there, confused and a little unnerved. What had just happened? The same thing repeated at 4 in the afternoon. Imani was in the living room organizing the library when she felt Damon behind her. She glanced over her shoulder and saw him reach toward her as if to pat her shoulder. But the moment she turned, he withdrew his hand and stepped back. "Yes?" Imani asked, voice now wary.
"I was just about to tell you you're shelving those books incorrectly. They're supposed to be alphabetical by author, as indicated in the schedule."
"Yes, but for each author they should be chronological, oldest to newest publication date."
"That wasn't in the program."
"It's implied."
"How is it implied?"
"By the fact that organization follows logical hierarchy."
Damon's voice grew tighter, more controlled. "Author, then chronology. It's obvious."
"No, it's not obvious. It's obsessive."
They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Damon said softly, "Reshelve them, please." And he walked away.
Imani stood there, watching him disappear into his office, and suddenly an idea struck her. It wasn't really the books bothering him. He was just looking for an excuse to get close to her.
But why? If you're as confused as I am, drop a comment telling us what he's doing. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the answer is coming soon, and it's going to leave you speechless. That same night, after her shift ended at 6 p.m., Imani went straight to the hospital to visit her mother, Loretta. The surgery had gone well. Her mother remained unconscious, still on a ventilator, but Dr. Smith said her vitals were stable, and the tumor removal had gone better than expected. "She's a fighter," Dr. Smith told Imani with a tired smile. "The next 72 hours are critical, but I'm optimistic." Imani sat beside her mother's bed and took her hand, the one without the IV, and tried not to cry. "I found a job, Mama," Imani whispered. "It's weird. The boss is unbearable, and I'm pretty sure he's a little crazy, but it pays well. Enough to cover all your medical bills. You're going to get better. Then we'll go home and everything will be okay." Her mother's chest rose and fell with mechanical regularity. Imani stayed until visiting hours ended, then took 3 buses back to her tiny apartment and collapsed into bed. Tomorrow she had to be up at 5 to reach Damon's penthouse by 6. That was her life now, for the next 2 years. 1 week later, Imani was humming. She looked up from the pile of Damon's shirts, perfectly ironed and folded according to the diagram he had given her. "What?" "You've been humming the same song for 3 days. Damon stood in the laundry room doorway, coffee mug in hand, watching her with an unreadable expression. "What's wrong?" Imani asked, feeling her face heat. She hadn't realized she was humming out loud. "It's just an old gospel hymn my mother sang when I was little." "Your mother is recovering well, I assume?" "You know?" "I paid the bills. I receive updates on her medical condition." Damon's tone was neutral. "Dr. Smith says she's responding better to treatment than expected." A sweet warmth filled Imani's heart. He was following her mother's recovery. "Thank you," she said softly. "You're welcome. I know I'm being repaid through work, but thank you anyway." Damon looked uncomfortable with the gratitude. It was just a business transaction, nothing more. But as he turned to leave, Imani caught him flexing his right hand, the wrist she had grabbed that night in his office, as if remembering something. That strange, almost tender thing kept happening. Several times a day, Imani caught Damon near her, hand outstretched as if to pat her shoulder, brush her arm, make any contact. But he always pulled back at the last second, always finding an excuse to justify his nearness. "You missed a spot on the counter." "That book is crooked." "Your hair almost caught fire from the lighter flame." The excuses grew more ridiculous, and Imani grew more confused. Finally, on the 9th day, she confronted him. "Why do you keep doing that?" Damon was in the kitchen pretending to inspect the fridge shelves while Imani made her afternoon smoothie. He had been hovering for 10 minutes, clearly working up to something. "Doing what?" he asked without looking at her, approaching, reaching toward her, then withdrawing. Imani set down the blender and crossed her arms. "If my work bothers you, just say so. Stop circling." "I have no problem with your work." "Then what is it?" Damon was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "That night in my office, when you touched my wrist, did you feel anything?" The question caught Imani completely off guard. "Did you feel anything?" "Besides panic over destroying an $80,000 phone?" "Yes, besides that." Damon finally looked at her. His dark eyes were intense, searching. "When your skin touched mine, did you feel anything unusual?" Imani thought back to that moment, the electric jolt, the warm shiver that ran through her. She had assumed it was just adrenaline, fear, exhaustion. "I'm not sure I understand," she said cautiously, cheeks burning. Damon watched her a moment, then seemed to make a decision. He extended his hand. "Touch me again." "What?" Your hand on my wrist like before. Damon's voice was calm, clinical, as if proposing a scientific experiment. I want to test something. Test what? Do it, please. Imani stared at his outstretched hand. This was insane. Her boss was asking her to touch him. The same boss who wore gloves to shake hands with others, who disinfected everything constantly, who couldn't stand contamination. You have obsessive-compulsive disorder. You don't let anyone touch you, I know that. So why? Because I need to know if it happens again. Damon's voice was now strained, laced with frustration. Touch me, Imani. Please. Hearing her name sent an emotion through her. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and placed her hand on his wrist. The effect was immediate. An electric current shot through both of them. The same warm, pleasant sensation that had made Imani jump and Damon's eyes widen. But this time, Damon didn't pull away. He stayed perfectly still, staring at her hand on his skin, his breathing quickening. Do you feel it? He murmured. Right? Yes, Imani sighed. I feel it. They stayed like that for several seconds, her hand on his wrist, palpable electric tension between them, neither wanting to break the connection. Finally, Imani withdrew her hand, heart pounding. What is this? She asked. Why does it happen? I don't know. Damon stared at his wrist as if it held the secrets of the universe. With everyone else, when they touch me, I feel dirty, disgusted, like I need to scrub my skin until it bleeds. But with you, with me, what? Damon lifted his eyes to hers, and the vulnerability in his gaze stole Imani's breath. With you, I feel alive. That night, Imani didn't sleep. She replayed the kitchen scene over and over. Damon's look, the electricity that bound them. With you, I feel alive. What did that mean? And why did Imani's traitorous heart race at the thought? This man had owned her for 2 years, trapped her in a debt she couldn't escape. He was possessive, obsessive, impossible to please. She shouldn't feel anything for him except resentment. But when he looked at her with those vulnerable eyes, Imani turned and buried her face in her pillow. Don't be stupid, she told herself. He's your boss, your jailer, basically. That electricity thing means nothing. But even thinking it, Imani knew she was lying to herself. 2 weeks later, the day everything changed began completely normally. Imani arrived at the penthouse at 6 a.m. to prepare breakfast, this time a perfect omelet. She had watched YouTube videos. She began her cleaning. At 2 in the afternoon, the building concierge called Damon to inform him that the quarterly inspection was scheduled for that very afternoon. Damon paled at the call. Today? He said into the phone, voice strangled. Are you sure it has to be today? Imani watched him from the kitchen where she was preparing his snack. She had never seen Damon rattled. He was always perfectly composed, unflappable, but now he looked genuinely frightened. Fine. 2:30. Yes, understood. Damon hung up and immediately began pacing the room, hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. Everything okay? Imani asked cautiously. Building inspection. They check all penthouse apartments every quarter for safety and maintenance issues. Damon quickened his pace. They arrive in 2 hours. Okay. And that's a problem because the bedroom isn't clean. Imani blinked. I cleaned the bedroom this morning. It's spotless. You don't understand. Damon ran a hand through his hair, mussing it in a way Imani had never seen. I had an episode last night. A bad one. My bedroom is in deplorable condition. An episode? It's my post-traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes I have nightmares. When they're bad, Damon broke off, jaw clenched. Go look. Imani went to the bedroom, opened the door, and froze. The room was devastated. Bed destroyed, blankets doubled over on the floor, pillows scattered, sheets ripped from corners, books knocked off the nightstand, a shard of broken glass on the floor. Even the curtains were half torn from their rods. It wasn't just a messy room. It was evidence of someone on the verge of a nervous breakdown. My God, Imani whispered. Damon appeared behind her and she heard the shame in his voice. I told you it was bad. What happened? I had a nightmare about an event from the past. Damon's voice was flat, emotionless, the way people sound when they've relived trauma thousands of times. When I woke up, I was disoriented. I didn't know where I was. I thought I was back in the burning house trying to escape. He gestured helplessly at the wreckage. Imani turned to him, and for the first time since they met, Damon Castellano seemed small, vulnerable, human. How much time do we have before the inspectors arrive? She asked. 1 hour, 45 minutes. Then we'd better start. They worked together in intense silence. Imani stripped the bed and remade it with clean sheets while Damon picked up broken glass and mopped up water. She rehung curtains while he straightened books. She vacuumed while he wiped every surface. At one point, they both reached for the same pillow. Their hands brushed. The familiar electric sensation shot through them, but neither pulled away. They stayed there, hands touching, eyes locked, a deep, intense presence settling between them. Thank you, Damon murmured, for not asking questions, for just helping. You're welcome. A heavy silence fell between them, charged with unspeakable tension. Then Damon's phone buzzed, a notification. Inspection in 30 minutes. They separated and resumed work. The bedroom was flawless when the building inspectors arrived. 2 people, a middle-aged white woman with a clipboard and a young Latino man with a tablet, arrived at 2:30 sharp. Good afternoon, the woman said with a professional smile. I'm Jeanette Harris, building manager. This is my colleague Carlos Reyes. We're here for the quarterly inspection. Is Mr. Castellano available? He's in a meeting, Imani lied smoothly, because Damon had expressly asked her to handle this without disturbing him. I'm Imani Banks, his household manager. I can show you around. The inspection went smoothly. Jeanette and Carlos checked smoke detectors, tested water pressure, examined HVAC vents. Everything was perfect. Obviously, it was Damon's space and nothing was ever less than perfect. When they reached the bedroom, Imani held her breath. Jeanette walked the room, checking windows, testing outlets, jotting notes on her clipboard. Everything is perfect here, she said finally. Mr. Castellano maintains his property beautifully. Imani released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. After the inspectors left, she found Damon in his office, staring at his computer screen. They're gone, she said from the doorway. Everything passed. Damon's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you for covering for me, for cleaning up. 2, he turned to her. Thank you for not making me feel like a monster in that room. You're not a monster. You trashed your bedroom in the middle of the night because you thought you were trapped in a fire from 25 years ago. That's the very definition of a monster. Imani stepped into the office and sat in the chair across from his desk, something she had never done before. It felt presumptuous. But in that moment, Damon didn't look like a powerful billionaire CEO. He looked like a broken man who needed to be seen. Tell me about the fire, she said softly. Please. Damon was silent so long Imani thought he wouldn't answer. Then he began. I was 8. Damon said in a distant voice.
My father worked long hours, so usually it was just my little sister Arya and me. She was 6. My mother worked nights, so we were often alone. He paused, and Imani noticed his hands trembling slightly. I was a turbulent child, undisciplined, never listened, never followed rules. My father often said I had too much energy and too little sense. Damon's laugh was bitter. He was right. What happened? I found my father's lighter. They had told me 1,000 times not to play with fire, but I was 8. I was stupid and thought I knew better. Damon's voice grew tighter, more strained. I was in my room, lighting matches and watching them burn. It was fascinating. The way the flame moved, the heat, the power of it. Imani knew where this was going, but stayed silent, letting him tell it. One match fell on my comforter. It caught. I tried to put it out, but it spread so fast. In seconds, the whole bed was in flames. Then the curtains, then the walls. Damon's breathing quickened. I ran to get Arya. I thought we could get out together, but the smoke was so thick, the heat so intense, and I was so young, I didn't know what to do. Damon, my father came home early. He heard us screaming. He rushed into the house and got us out. Damon's voice broke, but he continued. Then he went back in. For our pet. It was a kitten we had adopted just a month earlier. It meant so much to Arya and me. Imani felt tears prick her eyes. The house started collapsing while he was inside. We heard him scream. We heard him. Damon stopped, unable to continue for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Arya ran toward the house. She was trying to save him. I tried to hold her back, but I was too slow. The front wall collapsed on her. My God. My father died in the fire. Arya died 3 hours later in the hospital. My mother... Damon's hands now shook violently. My mother broke completely. She couldn't look at me anymore, couldn't stand being in the same room with me. I had killed her husband and her daughter. I had destroyed her world. It was an accident. You were a child. It doesn't matter. Damon's voice was hard. It's my fault. My recklessness, my stupidity, my complete inability to follow a simple rule. My mother then gave custody to my uncle, my father's brother, whom I barely knew. He was a multimillionaire who had already made his fortune in tech. Did you ever see your mother again after the funeral? She looked at me like I was a monster, like I had personally murdered her family. I never forgot that look. Damon's eyes were lost in the distance, reliving that moment. My uncle raised me, gave me everything money could buy, sent me to the best schools, left me his entire fortune when he died 5 years ago. But he never let me forget what I had done, what I had destroyed. Imani's heart ached for this man who had carried that guilt for nearly 25 years. Is that why you have obsessive-compulsive disorder? She asked gently. The need for control? Psychiatrists say it's a reaction to trauma. I lost control once and it destroyed everything. Now I can't tolerate the slightest chaos. Everything must be perfect, ordered, clean, safe. Damon's laugh was forced. My disorders are my punishment, my prison, and I deserve them. That's not true. It is true. I killed 2 people, Imani, because I couldn't follow one simple rule. Damon finally looked at her. His eyes were full of self-loathing. So yes, I deserve to live like this in the sterile cage I built myself. It's the least I can do. Imani stood and walked around the desk. Damon watched her warily, as if unsure what she would do. She extended her hand. What are you doing? He asked. Give me your hand. Imani, do it. Gently, Damon placed his hand in hers.
The intoxicating sensation was there, as always. But this time, Imani didn't let it distract her. She squeezed his hand gently and said, "You were 8. You were a child."
What happened was a tragic accident, but it wasn't your fault. You didn't kill anyone. You didn't destroy anything on purpose. You were just a kid who made a mistake. You don't understand. I understand that you've been punishing yourself for 20 years for something that wasn't your fault. I understand your mother was grieving and hurting, and she shouldn't have looked at you that way. I understand your uncle should have paid for therapy instead of just giving you money. Imani's voice was firm. And I understand that living in this perfect prison doesn't honor your father and sister. It slowly kills you. Damon's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I can't let go. If I do, you won't destroy the world. You'll just start living in it again. They stayed like that a long moment, hands clasped, as if something profound had settled between them. Then Damon gently withdrew his hand and said, "Thank you for listening." "You're welcome." Imani turned to leave, but Damon's voice stopped her. "Imani, tomorrow is Sunday, your day off. Would you—" He hesitated, as if unsure how to finish. "Would you mind if I came with you to visit your mother?" Imani turned, surprised. "You want to come to the hospital?" "I know I have issues with hospitals, germs, contamination, all of it. But I'd like to meet the woman who raised someone like you, if you don't mind." A sweet warmth bloomed in Imani's chest. "Yes," she murmured. "That would be nice." If you think Damon and Imani are falling in love and want to see what happens next, comment "in love." Give it a like if the fate of these two broken souls meeting has moved you. And keep watching because this episode will take you on an emotional roller coaster that ends in the most beautiful way. Sunday morning, the sky was crisp and clear. One of those Chicago autumn days that give the city an almost magical feel. Imani stood outside County Hospital at 9 a.m., checking her phone for the 3rd time. Damon had texted 20 minutes earlier. "On my way. Traffic is heavy." She still couldn't believe he was actually coming. Damon Castellano, hypochondriac billionaire with a hospital phobia, was voluntarily heading to the place he found most repulsive. For her. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb and Damon stepped out of the back seat. Imani's breath caught. He looked handsome, really handsome. He had dressed casually, or what passed for casual for him, dark jeans, a designer t-shirt that emphasized his build, and a leather jacket that probably cost more than Imani's entire wardrobe. But it was his face that made her heart beat harder. He looked nervous, vulnerable, human. "Hi," Damon said, stopping a few feet away. "Hi yourself." Imani noticed he carried a small bag. "What's that?" "Supplies." Damon opened the bag to reveal hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, disposable gloves, and a small spray bottle that probably contains something capable of killing every known germ. "I'm going to a hospital. I have to be prepared." Imani wanted to tease him, but the mere fact that he was doing this, that he was facing one of his greatest fears just to meet her mother, tightened her throat. "You don't have to do this, you know," she said softly. "I know how hard it is for you." "I want to," Damon replied, looking her in the eyes. "I want to meet the woman who raised someone strong enough to stand up to me." A sweet warmth filled Imani's chest. "She's still on a lot of medication. She might not even wake up." "Doesn't matter. I just want to be there with you." Those words hung between them, laden with meaning. Neither was ready to examine them too closely. "Okay," Imani finally said. "But if you need to leave at any point, just tell me. I won't mind.
Damon had taken barely 17 steps inside the hospital when his breathing grew shallow.
You okay?
Imani asked, seeing him fixate on the wall-mounted sanitizer dispenser as if it might attack.
Fine,
Damon said curtly.
He pulled out his own sanitizer, applied it generously, then slipped on a pair of disposable gloves.
Perfect. They took the elevator with 3 other people. Damon immediately pressed himself into a corner, trying to avoid all contact. His jaw was clenched so tight Imani could see the muscles working. When a nurse with a clipboard accidentally brushed his arm, Damon flinched so violently he nearly hit the wall.
Sorry,
the nurse said playfully, unaware of his distress. Damon didn't respond. He stood frozen. Imani reached out and touched the small strip of skin between his glove and jacket sleeve. Their eyes met, and she saw the panic ease slightly.
You're doing great, she murmured. I'm having a panic attack in an elevator, but you're still here, that's what matters.
Damon's fingers twitched as if he wanted to hold her hand, but the elevator dinged and the doors opened. They reached Mama Loretta's room without Damon bolting. Imani considered that a victory. Mama Loretta was awake. For the first time since surgery, her eyes were open and alive, and when she saw Imani, her face lit up with a smile that rocked Imani's heart.
My baby girl,
Mama said in a hoarse voice, still rough from the intubation tube removed the day before.
Come here.
Imani rushed to her mother's side and hugged her gently, careful of the IV lines.
Mama, you're awake. How do you feel?
Like a truck ran over me, but I'm alive. Her mother's gaze landed on Damon, who stood awkwardly near the door, visibly avoiding touching any surface.
And who is this handsome man you brought with you?
Imani felt her face heat.
Mama, this is Damon, my boss. Your boss?
Mama's gaze sharpened despite her weakness.
The one who paid my medical bills?
Yes, ma'am, Damon answered, advancing cautiously. He didn't offer a hand, unable because of his glove phobia, but inclined his head respectfully.
It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Banks.
Your daughter is very grateful to you.
Is she now?
Mama studied Damon with an intensity that made Imani uncomfortable. Loretta Banks might be recovering from major surgery, but her maternal instincts were fully intact.
And how did my daughter's boss end up paying $300,000 in medical bills? Oh, no, Mama, I told you I found a new job. A job that pays $300,000 up front to a girl with no degree?
Mama's eyes never left Damon.
That's not a job, baby. That's something else entirely.
Damon, to his credit, didn't flinch.
Your daughter is repaying a debt through work. She will be my household manager for the next 2 years, at an hourly rate that will cover the medical expenses.
2 years of servitude to pay my medical bills?
Mama's voice was flat.
So you bought my daughter?
I didn't buy her. I trapped her in a contract she couldn't refuse because the alternative was letting you die. Mama's voice grew stronger, fueled by righteous anger. That's not generosity, Mr. Castellano. That's coercion. A deadly silence filled the room. Imani had never heard anyone speak to Damon that way. Most people were too intimidated by his wealth and power, but Loretta Banks had spent 20 years raising her daughter alone, working 2 jobs, fighting poverty. A possessive billionaire didn't scare her.
You're right, Damon said softly.
Imani whipped her head toward him.
What?
Your mother is right. I forced you. I took advantage of your desperation to get what I wanted.
Damon's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed his pain.
At the time, I told myself it was just business, a simple transaction. But the truth is far more complicated.
What truth? Mama asked sharply. Damon looked at Imani, and a flash of vulnerability crossed his face. The truth is, your daughter is the only person who has ever touched me without making me feel dirty.
The truth is, I trapped her in this situation because I'm selfish and broken, and I wanted to understand why she affects me this way. Damon turned to Mama Loretta. The truth is, I'm falling in love with your daughter, and I don't know how to handle it without trying to control it. Imani forgot how to breathe. Had Damon just said he was falling in love with her? Mama Loretta stared at Damon for a long time. Then she said, "Sit down, Mr. Castellano. Let's talk." Damon sat in the chair beside her mother's bed, looking more nervous than Imani had ever seen him. "You have obsessive-compulsive disorder?" her mother asked bluntly. "Yes, ma'am." "From trauma?" "Yes." "Are you in therapy?" "No." Mama's expression spoke volumes about what she thought of that answer. "Why not?" "Because I don't deserve to get better. I caused a fire at 8 years old that killed my father and little sister. My disorders are my punishment for that." Mama was silent a moment, then said, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." Damon blinked. "Excuse me? Did you hear me correctly?" "The stupidest thing." "No, it isn't." Mama shifted in bed, wincing slightly. "You were a child. Children make mistakes, tragic, terrible mistakes sometimes, but mistakes nonetheless. Punishing yourself like this for the rest of your life doesn't honor the memory of those we lost. It wastes the life we have left. Mrs. Banks, and using my daughter as a guinea pig to figure out your feelings, that's selfish and unacceptable." Mama's gaze was fierce now. "But I can see you know that. I can see you feel guilty. Here's what's going to happen. Everybody's waited long enough. You need to go to therapy, real therapy, not just medication. You're going to deal with your issues like an adult instead of hiding behind your money and your need for control." Mama pointed at Damon. "And you're going to release my daughter from that contract immediately." "Mama," Imani protested. "Hush, baby." "I'm not finished." Mama pointed at Imani. "And you, if you want to keep working for this man, that's your choice. But it has to be a choice, not an obligation, understand?" Imani nodded, too stunned to speak. Mama turned back to Damon. "Do you love my daughter?" "It's complicated." "Love is always complicated, but it shouldn't be transactional. If you want to be with Imani, court her properly. Take her on dates. Treat her with respect and dignity. And if she chooses you, it's because she wants you, not because she owes you anything. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Mama sank back against her pillows, suddenly looking exhausted. "When you've done that, then I can thank you properly for saving my life, without feeling like my daughter sacrificed herself for it." Imani and Damon stood in the hospital parking lot, not knowing what to say. Finally, Damon broke the silence. "Your mother is terrifying, despite everything." Imani laughed. "Yeah, she's one of a kind. And she's right, mostly." Damon turned fully to Imani. "I'm releasing you from your contract. It's final. Your debt is canceled. You're free." Imani's heart clenched. "What? No, Damon, the money." "The money doesn't matter. It never did." Damon's voice was intense. "What matters is that I trapped you in a situation you didn't choose, and that was wrong. Then I correct it. But I don't want— let me finish." Damon took a breath. "I'm releasing you from the contract, but I'm also asking if you would consider staying. Not as an employee, as something else." "Something else?" "I don't know how to describe it yet, but I know that when you're there,
My apartment feels like a home instead of a sterile cage. I know that when you touch me, I feel alive for the first time in 24 years. I know you make me want to be better, to get help, to live fully instead of just existing. Imani's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall.
Damon, you don't have to answer now. Take your time, think about it. But know that if you walk away now, I'll understand, and I'll make sure your mother receives the best care possible for the rest of her days. No conditions, no debt, just because you deserve it. This man, this broken, complicated, impossible man, was offering her freedom, and all Imani wanted was one thing: to choose him. I need to think about it, she finally said. It's a lot, I know. Take all the time you need.
Damon called his driver to take Imani home. As the car pulled away, she turned and saw him standing in the parking lot, more alone than she had ever seen him. 3 days later, Imani hadn't returned to the penthouse. For 3 days, she stayed away, reflecting, digesting events, trying to understand what she wanted. Damon had kept his word. He sent her an official, signed, notarized release terminating the contract. Her debt was erased. She was free. And Mama's medical bills continued to be paid, even though Imani no longer worked for Damon. On the 3rd day, Keisha arrived with pizza and wine.
Come on, talk to me,
Keisha said, flopping onto Imani's worn-out sofa.
You've been radio silent for 3 days. What's going on?
Imani told her everything: the contract termination, Damon's confessions, her mother's intervention. When she finished, Keisha was silent a long moment. Then she said,
Do you love him? I don't know. Maybe. It's complicated. It's always complicated with you.
Keisha took a bite of pizza.
But here's the real question. Do you want to find out if you love him? Because that's different from being sure.
Did Imani want to find out? She thought of Damon's vulnerable look when he spoke about the fire, the way he overcame his hospital phobia to meet her mother, the electricity that jumped between them at every touch, the way he had set her free, even though it cost him everything.
Yes,
Imani said softly.
I think I do. Then what are you waiting for? Go get your man.
Imani arrived at Damon's penthouse at 6 p.m. on a Thursday, heart pounding. She used the keycard he had never asked her to return and took the elevator. The penthouse was dark when she arrived. No lights, no sound.
Damon?
No answer. She crossed the living room and froze at what she saw. Dirty dishes in the sink, a coffee mug on the counter, a jacket thrown over a chair instead of hung in the closet. Damon's perfect order was unraveling. He still hadn't called back his household staff. She found him in his bedroom, sitting on the floor, back against the bed, staring into space. The room was in disarray, not as bad as after his nightmare, but certainly not the immaculate space Imani was used to.
Damon?
He looked up. His surprise was almost comical. Imani, what are you doing here?
I came to give you my answer.
Damon rose slowly, face impassive. But first, I need to know something. Imani stepped closer.
That first night in your office, did you really feel something when we touched? Or was it just a ploy to trap me?
I felt it. Damon's voice was sincere. I spent my life running from human contact. And then you grabbed my wrist and I felt alive. It terrified me. So I trapped you because I'm selfish and I wanted to understand.
Understand what?
And you. Do you understand me?
No. But I want to spend whatever time it takes to learn.
Imani closed the distance until only inches separated them.
I have conditions, she declared firmly.
Name them.
First, you start therapy, real therapy, this week.
Done.
Second, you stop using your disorders as punishment. You work to get better because you deserve to heal, not because I'm asking you to. Agreed?
Third, we date like normal people. You take me to dinner, we go to the movies. We try to figure out if this chemistry between us is real or just some weird psychological reaction to trauma and desperation. Damon's lips curved into a smile. Those are fair conditions.
And fourth?
Imani reached out and took his hand, both feeling that familiar jolt race through them. You let me help you repair the damage, because partners don't let their partner sink alone. Damon's eyes lit with emotion. Partner? If you want. Instead of answering, Damon did something that shocked them both. He pulled her against him and hugged her tenderly. Imani startled in surprise. The fact that Damon was touching her so freely still shocked her deeply. Every time.
Damon, isn't this going to trigger a panic attack?
I thought it would, Damon murmured into her hair. But no, not with you. They stayed like that a long moment, embraced, feeling the electricity flow between them. Not just the shocks, but something deeper, something real. Finally, Damon pulled back slightly to look at her. I have to test something, he said softly.
Test what?
A theory. Why can I touch you without feeling dirty? Damon's thumb brushed her jaw, his gaze intense. I think you're my antidote, the only person capable of freeing me from my compulsions, but I need to be sure.
How do you verify it?
Damon's gaze dropped to her lips. If I can kiss you without pulling away or panicking, I'll know for certain that what I feel for you is stronger than my disorder. Imani's heart pounded so hard she thought it would burst. And if you can't, then we'll figure it out together. But Imani, I have to know, can I kiss you? Instead of answering, Imani rose on her toes and closed the distance. The moment Damon's lips brushed hers, time stopped. It wasn't just the pleasant shivers racing through every nerve ending. It was the way Damon kissed her, like she was precious, like she was the answer to a question he had been asking forever. One hand framed her face, the other wrapped around her waist, pulling her against him. And he didn't pull away. He didn't panic. He didn't retreat. He kissed her deeper, as if he were drowning and she was the air he breathed. When they finally separated, both breathless, Damon rested his forehead against hers. I think I've found my cure, he murmured.
Imani's laugh was shaky, laden with emotion.
That felt very natural. I'm serious. You're the cure for everything broken in me.
I'm not a cure, Damon. I'm just a person.
Imani stepped back to look him in the eye.
You still need therapy. You still have to work on yourself. I can't fix you.
I know. But you make me want to fix myself. That's more than anyone has ever done. They kissed again, slower this time, more tenderly. Then Imani's phone rang. She groaned and pulled it out. The hospital.
Hello?
Miss Banks, this is Dr. Smith. I wanted to inform you that your mother will be discharged in about a week. Her recovery has exceeded all our hopes. Imani felt tears rise.
Really? She can come home?
Yes. She'll need regular follow-up care, but the cancer is in remission. Your mother has beaten the disease, Miss Banks. After hanging up, Imani turned to Damon, tears streaming down her cheeks.
Mama's coming home? She did it.
Damon pulled her into his arms again, and Imani felt his chest shake with emotion. They stood there, in his messy bedroom, embraced, two broken people who had found solace in each other. Life felt perfect for them in that moment, but someone from the past was about to turn everything upside down. 1 week later, a knock came at Damon's door at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. Damon opened it and found a woman he hadn't seen since he was 8. His mother. "Hello, Damon." Damon felt suddenly cold. "How did you find me?" "You're a billionaire CEO. You're not hard to find." His mother, Catherine Castellano, entered the penthouse uninvited. "We need to talk." At that moment, Imani stepped out of the kitchen, having overheard the muffled conversation from the entryway. Dish towel in hand, Catherine looked at her and gave a contemptuous glance. "Who is this? Your girlfriend? Your wife?" The malice directed at Imani made her step back, stunned by the violence of the remark. "Why do you care?" Damon replied, noticing Imani's discomfort. "You stopped caring about my life years ago, remember? You don't deserve happiness, Damon, not after what you did to this family." Imani stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, towel in hand, watching this stranger viciously attack her, whatever Damon was now. The violence thickened the air. "Mom, please." Damon's voice was tense. All his usual confidence had vanished. "Don't call me that." The woman, Damon's mother, raged. "You lost the right to call me that years ago when you took the life of my husband and my daughter." Imani's mouth fell open. This was Damon's mother, the woman who had abandoned him after the fire. "I didn't kill them. It was an accident." "An accident you caused. An accident that destroyed everything." Damon's mother stepped closer, finger jabbing at his chest. "And then you abandoned me. You left me to rot in that facility while you lived in luxury on your uncle's money. You didn't even visit me once. You told the doctor you didn't want to see me." Damon's voice rose, desperate. "You said looking at me made you sick. So you abandoned me? Turned your back on your own mother?" "I was 8 years old." The words hung like a bomb, Damon's mother's face twisting with a mix of grief and fury. "And now I hear you're playing house with some girl, that you think you can be happy, that you think you can forget what you did and move on." She turned to Imani and stared straight into her eyes. "It's her. She's the girl you think can save you, you heartless bastard." "Enough!" Imani snapped, stepping between Damon and his mother. "Stop!" Catherine turned her fury on Imani. "This doesn't concern you, little girl." "Yes, it does, because I love him, and I'm not going to stand here and let you abuse him for something that happened when he was a child. You don't understand what he took from me. I understand grief. I understand loss. My mother almost died of cancer. I spent months watching her waste away, knowing I risked losing the only mother I had left." Imani's voice was calm and strong. "And you know what I never did? I never blamed her for getting sick. I never told her she didn't deserve to live, because that isn't love. That's cruelty." Catherine opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Damon was 8, Imani continued, a child. And instead of helping him through the trauma of watching his father and sister die, you abandoned him. You called him a murderer. You looked at him with hate and disgust, and then you left. A fire took your family. An accident took your family." Imani's voice rose. "Damon lost his father and sister too, and then he lost his mother because you were too overwhelmed by grief to see that you still had a son who needed you. You suffered from that loss. He suffered from that loss and from the guilt of feeling responsible. I can't imagine your pain as a mother and wife, living through all of that in one day. I understand, to some extent, why you hated him for it. But erasing him completely from your life? Can you imagine? Tears rose in Imani's eyes, despite her desperate efforts to hold them back. Can you imagine? An 8-year-old boy who just lost his father and sister, rejected by the only parent he had left, the only person he could turn to for comfort. Catherine was crying now, silent tears running down her face. I spent 20 years in institutions, she murmured. Psychiatric hospitals, treatment centers. Do you know what that does to a person? Honestly, I can't even imagine. I won't lie and say I do. But Damon spent those same years punishing himself for it. Together, you could have helped each other heal. Apart, things only got worse. Mother and son stared across the penthouse, two people broken by the same tragedy, separated by guilt, grief, and time. I wanted to see you, Damon said softly.
After the fire, I tried to visit you in the hospital, but they said you didn't want to see me. I couldn't look at you without seeing your father's face, your sister's smile, everything I had lost. So you lost me too. Catherine's face crumpled. I know I failed you. I was drowning in grief and I let you drown with me, and I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. They were the apologies Damon had needed for years. He stood frozen, not knowing how to respond. Imani gently pushed him forward. Talk to her. Really, talk, the two of you. She slipped into the kitchen. 3 hours later, Imani found Damon and Catherine sitting on the sofa, an open photo album between them. They were looking at pictures from before the fire. A family of 4, smiling, happy, together. This is Arya, Catherine said, pointing to a little girl with pigtails. She looked so much like you, carefree, wild, full of life. I don't remember her laugh, Damon admitted quietly. I tried, but I can't remember what it sounded like. It was like high, clear bells, bright and joyful. Catherine's voice choked with tears. She would have loved so much to see the man you've become. They continued talking, sharing memories, beginning the long process of rebuilding what the fire had destroyed. Imani slipped away to give them privacy. 2 days later, Damon stood in Imani's tiny apartment, looking completely out of place amid the second-hand furniture and peeling paint. Your mother is discharged from the hospital today, he said. I know, I'm picking her up in an hour. Where will she sleep? Here. Imani glanced at her cramped studio, barely big enough for one person, let alone 2. We'll figure it out. What if I had a better idea? Damon, I own a building downtown, luxury condos. There's a 2-bedroom on the 5th floor with a river view. Damon pulled out a key. It's yours, for as long as you want. No rent. I can't accept that. It's not charity. It's my way of making sure the woman I love and her mother have a comfortable place to recover and heal. Damon pressed the key into her hand. Please, let me do this. Imani looked at the key, then at Damon's face, so open, so vulnerable, so full of hope. Okay, she murmured. Thank you. Damon took both her hands in his. It's the least I can do, Imani. Anything you want, anything you need, never hesitate to tell me. Imani rose and kissed him, pouring all her passion, gratitude, love, hope, joy. When they parted, Damon wore that rare, genuine smile that lit up his face. By the way, I started therapy, he said. Yesterday, first session. How was it? Horrible, uncomfortable,
hated every second. Damon's smile widened. I'm going back next week. I'm proud of you. My therapist wants to meet you soon. Says you've played a big role in my progress. And you? How are you? Apparently, having someone who makes you want to heal is a powerful motivator. Damon pulled her into his arms again. You make me want to heal, Imani. You make me want to be better, not perfect, just better. Good. Because I don't want perfect. I want real. They stood in Imani's small apartment, embraced, and for the first time in their lives, both felt they had finally found home. 1 year after Imani fell asleep in Damon's office, they returned together to the Castellano building. The executive suite on the 68th floor was exactly the same. Perfect, impeccable, controlled. Except now one photo reigned on Damon's desk. Him and Imani, laughing at something off camera, his arms around her waist, her head thrown back in joy. Authentic, imperfect, magnificent. I still can't believe you kept that chair, Imani said, looking at the Italian leather executive chair where it all began. Are you kidding? That chair is important. It's where I found you, where everything changed, where I woke you with a ruler and threatened to have you arrested. Details. Damon smiled and pulled her down beside him.
Make a wish. A wish? A year ago, you fell asleep in this chair, desperate and exhausted. Today, you're here by choice, happy and thriving. That's a good reason to make a wish. Imani closed her eyes and thought of everything that had happened in the past year. Her mother's healing, the debt erased, Damon's therapy, Catherine's return, the tumultuous, complex yet so beautiful relationship they had built. She opened her eyes and looked at the man who had trapped her before setting her free. I wish for more of this, Imani said simply. More growth, more healing, more love, more moments building our life together. That's a beautiful wish, Damon murmured, kissing her tenderly. I'll help you make it come true. And he did. Love is not perfection or control. It's choosing to grow together, even in the difficult and chaotic moments. It's finding someone who makes you want to heal, not because they fix you, but because they make you believe you deserve to be healed. And sometimes, very rarely, the worst day of your life leads you straight to the most beautiful thing that ever happened to you. If this story moved you, don't hesitate to like. Leave a comment below telling me your favorite moment from this series. And subscribe, because more incredible stories are coming soon. They'll make you laugh, cry, and believe in the healing power of love, even for the deepest wounds. Thank you for watching. See you soon for the next one.